The cafe is quiet. She looks up. Your eyes meet for just a second, then she smiles. Before the moment can settle, you erase it yourself. She was only being polite. It couldn't have meant anything. Most men over 50 don't miss these moments because they aren't happening. They miss them because they've been trained to distrust what they see. Today, you'll discover the overlooked psychological signals behind these brief encounters, why quiet confidence affects people more deeply than most realize, and the surprising reason your age may be creating attraction instead of diminishing it. One of the biggest mistakes older men make is assuming attraction always begins with appearance. In reality, the brain often notices something else first. It notices contrast. Think about the average interaction people experience every day. Most conversations are rushed. Most people are trying to impress, explain themselves, or win approval. The emotional atmosphere is busy before a single meaningful word is spoken. Then someone different walks into the room. He isn't rushing. He isn't scanning for attention. He isn't changing who he is to fit the people around him. He's simply comfortable in his own space. That difference is more powerful than most men realize. Psychologists have long understood that our minds naturally pay attention to what breaks familiar patterns. When someone projects calm in an environment filled with tension, the brain notices automatically. Not because the person is trying to stand out, but because they already do. That's why a simple smile from a younger woman is often misunderstood. She may not be making a conscious decision at all. Her mind has already registered something unusual before she has time to explain it logically. She isn't reacting to loud confidence. She's responding to emotional steadiness. And steadiness is becoming increasingly rare. Many younger men are still searching for their identity. They're eager to prove themselves. They seek reassurance through attention, compliments, and constant feedback. There's nothing wrong with that. It's simply part of many people's personal development. But years of life experience often create something different. Older men who have faced setbacks, responsibilities, and difficult decisions frequently develop a quieter confidence. They no longer feel the need to perform every moment they're around other people. That internal stability changes the emotional experience of everyone around them. The smile isn't necessarily a declaration of romantic interest. It's often the mind's natural response to someone who feels grounded, predictable, and emotionally composed. And that's a completely different kind of attraction. One that begins long before either person says a single word. But there's another layer that most explanations completely overlook. People often assume a smile means one of two things. Either she's interested or she's simply being polite. Human behavior is rarely that simple. Very often, a smile is neither an answer nor an invitation. It's curiosity. A silent question that never becomes words. Who is this man? Why does he seem so comfortable? Why isn't he trying to impress anyone? That silent question creates a brief psychological test. Not a game, not manipulation, simply observation. What happens next depends far less on her than on you. Many men immediately break the moment. They look away too quickly. They become visibly nervous, or they try to force conversation because they believe every opportunity must become something more. Ironically, that's exactly what destroys the quality that created the moment in the first place. Composed men don't rush to define every interaction. They allow uncertainty to exist. They don't need immediate answers. That patience communicates emotional security. Research in social psychology consistently shows that people feel more comfortable around individuals whose behavior remains stable and predictable across different situations. Emotional consistency lowers tension and makes interactions feel effortless rather than demanding. That's why genuine confidence isn't loud. It doesn't chase, it doesn't seek proof. It simply remains unchanged whether someone smiles, looks away, or keeps walking. And that emotional steadiness creates something even more powerful than attraction. It creates trust. Because before people become deeply interested in someone, they first ask themselves a much quieter question. Do I feel comfortable around this person? When the answer is yes, everything else becomes possible. Now let's go one level deeper. The greatest advantage that often comes with age isn't experience itself. It's resolution. At some point, many men stop fighting themselves. They've made enough mistakes to understand what truly matters. They've learned which battles deserve energy and which only drain it. They no longer feel the need to explain every decision or defend every opinion. That inner resolution changes how other people experience them. Without realizing it, many younger women recognize this immediately. Not consciously, emotionally, because certainty is calming. Think about how exhausting modern interactions have become. Everyone is trying to be interesting. Everyone is trying to be noticed. Conversations often feel like performances instead of genuine exchanges. Then someone appears who isn't performing at all. He listens more than he speaks. He doesn't interrupt silence. He isn't trying to create an impression every few seconds. That kind of presence feels different, and different attracts attention. This is why many older men become confused when they receive unexpected interest. They're still viewing themselves through an outdated identity. They remember the years when they believed attention had to be earned through humor, status, appearance, or constant effort. But people change. And so do the qualities that naturally draw others in. What often becomes attractive later in life isn't endless energy. It's emotional clarity. Someone who knows what they value. Someone who doesn't panic when a conversation becomes quiet. Someone who can enjoy another person's company without trying to control where the interaction leads. That quiet certainty removes pressure from the moment. And pressure is one of the fastest ways to destroy genuine connection. People naturally relax around those who don't demand anything from them. No hidden agenda. No desperate need for validation. No urgency to prove their worth. Ironically, when you stop asking every interaction to confirm your value, your presence begins communicating value on its own. That's why many meaningful connections don't begin with dramatic conversations. They begin with something much smaller, a glance, a brief smile, a comfortable silence. Because before attraction becomes obvious, it usually begins as emotional ease. And emotional ease is something people remember long after they've forgotten the words that were spoken. There's another misconception that quietly shapes how many older men interpret these moments. They believe attraction is created by doing more, saying more, showing more, trying harder. But many meaningful connections grow in exactly the opposite direction. They grow when nothing feels forced. Behavioral researchers have repeatedly found that people tend to trust those whose actions remain consistent over time. We instinctively relax around individuals whose emotions don't swing dramatically from one moment to the next. That's what emotional maturity often looks like. Not perfection. Predictability. Imagine two different men receiving the same smile. The first immediately starts wondering what it means. He changes his posture, searches for the perfect line, and begins imagining an entire future from a 3-second interaction. The second simply smiles back. Then he continues with his day. Not because he lacks interest, because his sense of self isn't dependent on the outcome. That difference is enormous. One person is trying to capture the moment. The other is simply experiencing it. Ironically, people are often drawn toward those who don't appear emotionally dependent on being chosen. Not because they're distant, because they're complete. There's no pressure to respond a certain way. No feeling that every conversation carries hidden expectations. That emotional freedom is surprisingly attractive. It allows both people to remain authentic instead of slipping into performance. And this reveals something many men overlook. Sometimes the smile has already accomplished everything it was meant to accomplish. It wasn't asking for immediate action. It wasn't demanding a conversation. It was simply a brief moment of mutual awareness between two people who happened to notice each other. Not every meaningful interaction has to become a relationship. Not every signal needs to become a story. Some moments become valuable precisely because they remain simple. When you understand that, something changes inside you. You stop chasing certainty. You stop needing instant answers. You become comfortable allowing life to unfold naturally instead of trying to control every outcome. Ironically, that's the mindset that makes future connections feel effortless. Because genuine confidence isn't measured by how many opportunities you pursue. It's measured by how little you need any single moment to define your worth. Now we arrive at the part that makes many men uncomfortable, because it challenges one of the oldest beliefs about attraction. For decades, many men have been told the same story. Your value declines with age. Your best years are behind you. If a younger woman notices you, there must be another explanation. But human attraction has never followed a simple timeline. It follows perception. And perception is shaped by far more than appearance. Studies in relationship psychology consistently show that qualities such as emotional intelligence, confidence, dependability, and self-control become increasingly important when people evaluate long-term attraction. Physical appearance matters, but it is only one piece of a much larger picture. That's why many older men unknowingly underestimate themselves. They keep judging who they are today through the lens of who they were 20 years ago. Meanwhile, everyone else is responding to the person standing in front of them now. Experience leaves visible traces, not only in gray hair or the lines on your face. It changes your posture, your voice, your pace, your ability to stay calm when life becomes unpredictable. Those qualities communicate something that cannot be purchased or imitated overnight. They communicate earned confidence, and people recognize what's been earned. This is why stillness can become surprisingly powerful. Someone who isn't constantly checking their phone. Someone who isn't interrupting silence. Someone who doesn't feel the need to dominate every conversation. In today's world, that level of composure stands out more than endless excitement ever could. The irony is that many men never notice this transformation because it happened gradually. You adapted to challenges. You survived disappointments. You learned patience. You became more selective about where you invest your energy. To you, those changes feel ordinary. To someone meeting you for the first time, they're immediately visible. That's often what people respond to. Not perfection, not youth, not status. A life that appears internally organized. And when someone senses that kind of emotional order, they instinctively become more relaxed in your presence. Sometimes that comfort appears as nothing more than a brief smile. Sometimes it's the beginning of a conversation. And sometimes it remains only a passing moment. None of those outcomes reduce its significance. Because the real transformation isn't learning why someone noticed you. It's realizing you no longer need constant proof that you're worth noticing in the first place. Now comes the final shift, the one that changes how you walk into every room from this day forward. Most men spend years asking the wrong question. What should I do when she smiles? It's understandable. but it's also the wrong place to focus. Because once you understand what creates these moments, your attention naturally moves somewhere more important. Who are you becoming when no one is looking? Real confidence isn't built during conversations. It's built long before they happen. It's built in the promises you keep to yourself, in the standards you refuse to compromise, in the ability to remain calm when life becomes uncertain. Those private victories shape your public presence. And presence is something people feel long before they analyze it. That's why many meaningful interactions happen in ordinary places. An elevator, a bookstore, a waiting room, a coffee shop, no perfect lighting, no rehearsed conversation, no dramatic circumstances, just two people crossing paths. In those moments, there is nowhere to hide behind status, appearance, or carefully prepared words. Only character remains. And character has a quiet way of revealing itself. Sometimes that brief smile really is nothing more than kindness. Sometimes it's simple friendliness. And yes, sometimes it's genuine attraction. The important point isn't trying to decode every interaction. It's understanding that your value doesn't depend on knowing which one it was. Once you stop searching every moment for validation, something remarkable happens. You become easier to be around. You listen more carefully. You speak with greater intention. You stop forcing connections that aren't naturally developing. Ironically, that's when the strongest connections often begin. Not because you've learned a secret technique, but because you've stopped needing one. You no longer enter a room hoping someone will confirm your worth. You enter already knowing it. And people can feel the difference. The greatest form of confidence isn't believing everyone will notice you. It's remaining completely yourself, whether they do or they don't. When you reach that point, attention stops feeling like proof. It becomes a byproduct. Because the men who leave the deepest impression are rarely the loudest people in the room. They're the ones who carry quiet certainty wherever they go. That kind of presence never demands attention. Yet somehow, it rarely goes unnoticed. The final lesson isn't about younger women. It isn't about smiles. And it isn't even about attraction. It's about finally seeing yourself clearly. For too long, many men have measured their value by how often the world reflected it back to them. A compliment, a glance, a relationship, a stranger's approval. But those things were never meant to define you. They were only ever reflections. Real confidence begins the moment you stop asking every interaction to tell you who you are. Because when your identity comes from within, every conversation becomes lighter. Every connection becomes more genuine. And every opportunity feels like something to appreciate, not something to chase. If someone smiles at you, return the smile with the same calm confidence that created the moment. If a conversation happens, enjoy it. If it doesn't, keep walking with the same quiet certainty. Your peace should never depend on someone else's response. Ironically, that's the point where your presence becomes the most compelling. Not because you're trying to attract attention, because you're no longer asking for it. Remember this: the strongest presence in any room belongs to the person who no longer needs the room to prove their worth. If you enjoyed this perspective and found it valuable, you'll find another video waiting for you that explores the hidden psychology behind confidence, attraction, and human behavior in even greater depth. And if you want more thoughtful psychology content like this, subscribe to the channel and join us for the next video. A man who knows his worth doesn't chase recognition. He becomes impossible to overlook. Would you like a separate visual cues list for your editor? If yes, I'll provide it one section at a time, stopping after each chunk and asking,